Heidi, this is Rob. Come from that place that you know. So I don't have to say it, right? The undisclosed barn location somewhere in another undisclosed secret location. Last video I did, I was talking about veterans. And I've been trying to put together so many of these thoughts about damage done to individuals, damage done in families. The last video I did talked about toxic family relationships. More than anything else, it was toxic family. We have toxic friend relationships. You can sort of, oh gosh, I wish you wouldn't do that. That poor old blind cat, he just pees on everything. I guess that's how he finds out where he's at. Anyway, in family, that blood's thicker than water thing sort of does hang in. And we have a toxic relationship there. It sort of works throughout the entirety of the lifespan. If it's just someone you know and you don't have kids with them, then, you can sort of possibly get out of that toxic relationship. And I've had to do that before. It's not comfortable, but sometimes you run into people that drain the life out of you. They came from, I'm trying to scoot around where the light doesn't drive me crazy in my glasses. They come from toxic relationships. And if you come from that, then you never really understand what's normal. You have to go out and do some research. You have to do some soul searching. You have to get some counseling. You have to get some reality to understand anything about normality in relationships if you grew up in just a screwed up ordeal that you barely walked out of, not knowing who you are, who anybody else is, or why you're even alive. That's what life does to people nowadays. It's not a good deal. But back to the veterans. This is something that I wrote for a fella that I learned to care about real quick. When you meet people, if you allow yourself to feel a little bit, you can pick up on an awful lot of things just with a little conversation. But when I got involved in the fire department, I started meeting people that were used to doing these hard things. And I'm going to read this to you, and then I've got one more, and then I'll explain why I'm doing this. It's for Veterans Day. Like I said, I used to write things for people before they lobotomized me, for something special, just something I could say, because I'm not the kind of person that can always just come up and say something. I have to write it out in a way that I can present, what I'm trying to say, and that's just weird, but that's okay. Veterans Day. Reverence to our veterans that gave so much for our peace. The blood that shed for freedom is the price for our release. Bow our heads in prayer that war will cease to pay. Reverence to our veterans each and every day. I wrote that back in 2004, and I know it's pretty hollow, but it was the best that I had to say to this man that gave. And, these things never leave us. They never leave us. Men do have hearts, believe it or not. We're just not designed to bring them out in the open sometimes in the way that our counterpart does. Okay, that was the first poem. The second poem is called The Maiden's Hand. I wrote this in, I know Kitty. If you hear the kitty, he's the blind kitty that pees on everything and he can't help it. It's okay, baby. He just walks around and bumps into stuff, but he's fat and fine and healthy. He is my friend. He is a cat, after all. The Maiden's Hand. I look around and see the children, bright of face, without illusion, knowing full the well that be, dipped by man's hostilities. If mothers knew for what they bore, in the womb that they adore, its future's needs that fodder feed, its blood will fuel the war machine. Would mothers then dispel the life of tomorrow's sorrows by the knife, and bring about the end of man? For Life is Thine, The Maiden's Hand, written by Robert E. Devine, Jr., 1/16/07. Now, all this stuff came on the heels so much. I had moved to a new place, gone through 9/11, was retiring from the life that I saw, and I was starting to learn more about we call the civilian, rational, everyday life of politics, and God, I still don't know what to call it. I'm still learning about it. But the reason I wrote these two things, Veterans Day, is because I love my veterans. I love our people that do so much for us. I got hurt when I was 17. I had bad back surgeries. I was not useful for the military. I wasn't useful for much anything after that. So I could never give back what I thought my country needed from me, which is, of course, why I joined the fire department and became an EMT and did what I did, trying to help out then. I couldn't do it when I was young, so I tried to do it when I got older. Of course, health didn't work out that well, but I'm still a board member on the fire department trying to help our young people that are doing. Now, the juxtaposition of The Maiden's Hand, that was a poem saying, women, mothers, if you really grasp what was going on in the bigger reality of war, would you continue to churn out children so that they could just be fodder for the war machine? You know, would mothers then dispel the life of tomorrow's sorrows by the knife? Well, we do that now today on a regular basis, but I don't think it would be, I can't use the word righteous reasoning, but when something gets so insane, and I'm talking about a species, gets so insane, at some point, how in the hell do you stop it? How do you turn it off? That's what this poem was about, The Maiden's Hand. So on one side, we have our poor veterans that suffer. And then we have our females that honestly hold the future. They really do. They are the womb man. Now, why do I bring this stuff up? Well, I guess I bring it up because I talked about the idea of coming out of, the idea of mental illness not being something that we think it is at all. There's a fella, his name is Jordan Peterson. Go listen to some of his views. What's amazing to me is what I had learned over years is the same dadgum thing that man's saying. People are not born with a crazy gene. What has happened is humanity has been pushed into something that is not real, it is not human, it is not organic. So people are having problems. If you believe in evolution, we were designed to operate within a set of parameters. We, over many, many, many eons of time, were made for such a time as this, physically. Okay, I accept that. The other part is the psychological aspect. We are not machines. I want to use foul language when I talk about these things. This isn't my first rodeo to be involved in the concept of where is humanity going with respect to technology. I've been thinking about this stuff, paying attention to it since the 70s. I really got involved in it in the 80s. Never on the level I wanted to, but I spent my time thinking about how does this affect man? How does this affect relationship? How does this affect, specifically the relationship between man, which is a perishable creature, and his concept of the non-perishable, the God aspect, the forever aspect, the overall aspect. So that's where my perspective has been. How does technology F all that stuff into the ground to where it cannot bring its head up if there is no deity. Now, I have the praise Yah to believe in the deity. But what I also, as an intelligent person, can do as the devil's advocate, and I hate that. I've sort of been that way most of my life. I've been able to look at both sides of things. And it really sucks. But because you end up with almost a mathematically, what you call, when you have a function that is a null set. It's not 0, it's not 1, it's not undefined, it's just null. What do you do with it? What do you do with these undefined type circumstances? And that's where we find ourselves right now, in an undefined type circumstance. So the whole point of the Jonah Project channel has been to talk about coming out of her. And the her I'm talking about literally just is the narrative. And looking for authentic life. Something that will ratchet down things that a human being has only been exposed to for the last 20, 30 years at the most. And that is the digital technology and the way it's changed our relationships. I'm a relationship person. I think that without foundational relationships amongst the human species, in the situation that we're in today, where the realities of the world are being guided by something other than an organic ground-up movement, the only thing you can do to try to help your mental status and help sort of ratchet down why I think mental illness is being part of it is becoming so pronounced is that we're out of our element. There's a song that was done back in, I guess, the 60s or 70s. I was born in the early 60s, but I wasn't around that kind of music and such. But a friend turned me on to it, and it's called Pushing Too Hard. When you push too hard on anything, whether it's a human being, and human beings have this other dimension of spirituality, and I'm talking about machinery. That's, my background's in physics, so in engineering, so I look at machinery. I look at pushing things to limits. I understand when I put too much current through a fuse or through a transistor, it's going to pop, or when a capacitor, the old-fashioned kind, used to, they used to make a heck of a bang. I pushed the circuit too hard. The circuit couldn't do anything about it because I was the one that designed the circuit, and I drove the circuit. So the analogy is, you're the circuit. Someone is driving you. Please start looking inside. Look to something more than the discourse of the day. Go out and smell fresh air. Look at a sunset. Hug somebody. Forgive somebody. I guess hit somebody if you have to. But do something human. Do something real. It's a process. It's not something that you do all at once. It's a way, like Frank said. What did Frank say? It's a way of life. Yeah. It's a way of life. So, create your own realities, looking in the mirror. If you live your life that way, the truth will be much clearer. And when you look in the mirror, you're not seeing somebody else. You're seeing you. Go see who you are. And at some point, you may get better and feel better. It took me a good 20 years to make progress that really brought me back into humanity after the circumstance I went through. And it's still a daily growing process. I guess I'm a weak person. I had to have faith. Love lifted me. Hallelujah.